sure there's a song about Tuesdays.
There's quite a few. All right. Hey, guys.
We are live. Welcome, guys, to another episode of What Car or Truck Should I Buy? I'm Mike.
I'm Nathan.
And today, guys, we're talking about future classics. These specifically are modern cars that we think are going to turn into something worth a little bit of coin someday. And we based this list off of some, we made educated guesses, right? So these are cars that we think look very good, for one. They're interesting. They may be a little bit different than something conventional on the market. They have a cool story behind it, maybe a big name, a cool origin story, something cool in development, or maybe just something that caused a lot of hype when it was out. People wanted these vehicles. We've been getting a lot of comments about what you guys think might be on this list, and there's some really good guesses. You guys are doing a good job, but I say we just get right into it.
Hell yeah. And number 10 is my number one.
Oh, is it really?
It is indeed.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, and at the end of this video, we'll tell you which one of these we would actually go out and buy for sure, although I think you might have
I just gave it away.
Number 10 is the Cadillac CTSV Wagon.
That's right, baby.
Because A, look at it. It's badass. It's a wagon. B, it has a Corvette engine.
A supercharged Corvette engine.
C, it was available with a manual transmission.
Yes.
And D, I don't think it needs to be a D. You have three very good reasons right there. The CTSV wagon, sadly, is no longer in production, but it was recently in production, and it's a badass. I don't know what I have to say about this thing. You've driven it more than I have, so.
I have indeed, and I actually tried to buy one, and my wife found out about it and nearly lobbed off my arm.
Uh-oh.
The thing is about this wagon is that it's a really good handling vehicle. Yeah, it's a little bit heavier than the regular CTSV, but with that extra weight over the rear wheels, traction, woo, it's good. And it has the mag suspension, so you really do have the best of both worlds. And my whole point was, honey, I can fit the stroller in this car.
Wow, compelling
Let's
argument.
do it. Right. And she said,
and the dogs.
Yeah, and the dogs. And she said, manual transmission, interesting. Then I put her in the car, and I actually fired it up. And she looked at me, and she said, absolutely not. And I was like, oh, honey, there weren't that many I mean, it was a real limited run.
Yeah.
And once again, it's not being built anymore. So, yeah, it could be a very compelling collector in the very near future.
And you know what? These things are actually already holding very good value, which is another reason why we think they might continue to go up in the near future. I mean, they're not quite what they were brand new, but a pretty decent one is fetching, I think, north of 30 or 40 grand. I mean, they're still worth a really good chunk of change already. Let's keep moving on. Number 9 on this list is just a gorgeous coupe. It's the Lexus LC500. It's maybe my favorite design on a Lexus ever. It's beautiful. The lines are incredible, and to boot, under the hood, there's a 5-liter naturally aspirated V8 engine.
Now, one of the reasons why this could very well be a collectible is in the future, it's quite possible in the near future, Lexus will stop building V8s, and this could be a twin turbocharged V6, a turbocharged 4-cylinder. We already know about the hybrid versions of this car, so it stands to reason that in order to get this
in a good 10, 15 years.
I'm sorry, but the 2020 Subaru Outback probably won't be on this list. Shall we continue?
We shall continue. Number 8 on this list is actually related slightly, I think, to the first car, number 10. But it's the Chevy SS, which, if you don't know what that is, it's basically a 4-door sedan. Again, it has a Corvette engine. This time it's not supercharged, though. But it also was available with a 6-speed manual transmission, also available with magnetic suspension. And it looked like an Impala, basically. I mean, really sleeker design.
Now, bear in mind that there were versions of the Impala, and all these cars came from Australia, by the way. And unfortunately, for some reason, Chevrolet, General Motors, never put any money behind PR with this vehicle. They literally, there were no commercials. There was no magazine coverage of any sort. We did drive one, but we never got our hands on the manual transmission version of it. I did drive a manual very briefly in Florida, but that's not the same thing. And, this is a car that a lot of people really wanted, but it came out at the wrong time. It went away at the wrong time, and it just didn't get that audience that truly wanted it or would buy it, and it's a real shame.
Well, the thing that's funny about the Chevy SS is, like, you see one, and then you have to think to yourself, is that a Chevy SS? And then you kind of like pull up closer to it when you're on the road, right? And then you kind of look for the badges, because the only way you can tell is by looking at the front bumper or the rear end, and if you're really keen, you can spot the big brake calipers or the little vents on the fenders, but like you really have to look to even see if it is one while you're on the road, which is absolutely crazy. Cool car though.
Cool car. Let's move on to the next one, which is another one of my favorites on the list.
Number 7 is actually one of Roman's least favorite cars. I know that for a fact. It's the Dodge Viper, and most recently it was available with an 8.4-liter V10, old school American brute force badassery. I don't know what else you need to say. I mean, look at it. It holds, like, the ACR version was a super track prepped version.
Still one of the fastest cars out there on the track.
It holds lap records at like a bajillion racetracks, or at least it used to when it was making those rounds. And it's no longer in production, and we've heard rumors that eventually Dodge might bring it back, but currently we know of zero plans to bring back the Viper.
Nothing official has been said, and I sincerely doubt we're going to see anything in the next few years. Bear in mind, FCA, Dodge, they build Ferraris. Yeah, I don't know if they want to build a competitor with that.
Yeah, maybe
now,
not.
there were a couple things about the final version of that car. They actually improved the interior a little bit, and it was more comfortable than the previous cars. I liked that. But with long legs, someone like Roman, he actually had to slouch over quite a bit in order to drive it properly, and he did not like that. He did not find it comfortable. And the fact that he was so uncomfortable driving those cars was music to my ears. And on top of that, I enjoyed the hell out of that car. I thought it was a great final version of it. And I've driven probably 20 Vipers in my lifetime, pretty much all of the versions leading up to this one. And I truly did think that they had a winner on their hands. Unfortunately for them, in terms of on paper, the equivalent Corvette was a faster car.
Indeed it was, and well, the Viper is no longer in production for now, so I think we should keep moving on to actually another GM product. GM has a strong presence on this list.
They do indeed.
But that's because they made a lot of really interesting cars over the past 10 or so years. Next up at number 6 is the Camaro ZL1, or, I had to put this in there, the last generation Camaro Z28. And so the ZL1 is like the current track package with the big V8. The Z28 was like the previous gen's version of that. It had enormous wheels and tires. The bow tie was empty, so air could get through. You needed that extra little square inch of airflow.
Hell yeah.
Obviously. The hood had vents on it. It's one of those vehicles that's like the interior is full of Alcantara. This is something I've lusted after for a while, and currently they're not super expensive, but I think they're going to continue to climb up.
Let me address a point that some people have brought up, probably inadvertently. Bear in mind that this list is for modern collectibles.
Yes.
A lot of you guys are bringing up cars, including the Citroën du Chavot, the 2CV. Yeah, no. We're talking about cars that within the past few years.
Well, I mean, plenty of people would argue that already is a classic.
Yeah.
Well, of course it's a classic, but the point is that their years are a little off. The Mercury Marauder, yes, very cool car, could be a collectible in the future, but not on this list because too old.
In fact,
these are modern collectibles.
All of these are within 5 years old. I mean, this might be the oldest car on the list, and this is from 2014, I believe.
Yeah.
So these are all very recent, last 5 to 10 years. That's why they're modern future classics.
Right.
Should we keep moving on?
Keep on going, bro.
Number 5 is actually sitting right there. It's the BMW M2. And we just had a chance to take this to the track this morning for an episode of Hot or Not, which will be coming out in the very near future. This one is the competition pack, so it has the twin turbocharged 3-liter straight 6 straight out of an M3. It's detuned a little bit, so it makes 405 horsepower. It has an M active differential in the back, limited slip diff, big tires. It looks cool. This one has a dual clutch transmission. There's also a 6-speed manual available. It's like the purest. I could keep going on forever. I know. It's like the purest M car you can buy today.
And it will be a collectible because they're not going to be building cars like this for that much longer.
No.
Let's face it. It's all power in a very short wheelbase. That is not the easiest car to drive super, super hard. Our driver, Paul, drove the hell out of it.
Oh, man.
And aside from the fact he's adorable when he drives these cars, it's also one of those things where you have to be like a serious driver to get the most out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this thing lets you turn off all the nannies. You can roast the tires all day. You can drift it like crazy. It's a super fun car and something that, I don't know if we're going to see too many cars like this in the near future.
But if you want to use launch control, pretty much forget it, because unless you set your house on fire, sacrifice something to the gods,
A goat.
swing a cat over your head that's dead,
Right.
you will not be able to get the system to work properly.
Gosh, we had a hard time getting launch control to work. It's one of those things that needs to be on like level ground. The temperature of the engine and the transmission have to be at the right level. You can't have used it twice in a 5-minute period. It's like
It's ridiculous. You have to put a postage stamp on it. I mean,
It's
there's just
crazy.
stuff that's required is ridiculous.
But let's keep moving on. Before we do that, actually, you guys keep posting some really awesome suggestions in the comments. We will come back to a few of these after we're done with our part of the list, because there's some really good ones that I want to bring up. But number 4 is the Alfa Romeo 4C, which is another car that you have driven a lot.
Yes, I have. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about cars that also have maybe had a limited production or not a massive production. I just recently saw a Ford Focus ST, awesome car, but I had a really big production, so a lot of them are out there. As such, collectability will probably take even longer. But with an Alfa Romeo 4C, they just discontinued the coupe. All they have left is the Spider. And the coupe, it was really fast. It was like a bargain basement Ferrari. I thought they were super cool, but I also hated getting in and out of that car. The sill was this wide, and getting my big fat American butt over that sill into the seat was nearly impossible.
You have to think of it like a daily yoga routine, where you fold yourself.
I don't
in
do
half,
yoga.
and then you chop off your legs.
Yeah,
and then you have your friend toss you in.
At least with the Spider version of it, it's easier to get in and out of, obviously.
Yeah.
But aside from that, that car was super wicked quick on the track, and it was a hell of a lot of fun to drive. And there weren't that many sold, so it could be a hell of a collectible in the near future.
Yeah, they sell maybe 300 or 400 of these like a year or something crazy.
Really?
Like,
I thought it was 30 or 40.
It's really
very
insane
few.
how few they sell.
It's a big shame they never built a manual transmission version of the car.
Yeah.
I know I harp on about that, but on a small sports car like that, that would be really cool. When I asked them at the event, the designer, he looked at me and yelled at me and said, no, this car was built specifically for this dual clutch thingy, which is a bummer.
Go figure. Number 3 on the list, we're getting down there. Number 3 is the Honda Civic Type R. A lot of you guys called this one as well. This one's special. It's going to be a collectible for sure here in the United States because, Nathan, it's the first Type R that we got in the U.S., which is a big deal. You can tell it's a Type R because it has the red Honda badge. It's very cool. This is a beautiful car to drive. The chassis is just wonderful. The engine makes a lot of power. It has an awesome manual transmission. It's one of those vehicles that's front-wheel drive, but you wouldn't know it was front-wheel drive if you just hopped in it and gave it the beans, you know what I mean? It's so balanced. It really, just on a track, it drives so well.
I think saying you wouldn't know it's front-wheel drive is a bit of a stretch.
It's so incredibly balanced.
I don't agree with this car being on this list, just like I would say the
Really?
Ford Focus
man.
ST should be on this list, because production numbers of this car are going to be half decent. And because of that, it's going to take a while for it to build up in price. However, it will eventually be a classic, and it will eventually be a collectible. I just think that there's some other cars out there. And the reason I say that is somebody recently threw up there, what about the Ford Mustang? Ugh. Unless it's a limited version of the Mustang, for instance, maybe the Bullet, maybe.
Maybe the Bullet.
The numbers are crazy. Remember, the more they build, the less collectible something is. So if it's a limited run, if they only build 1,000 or 10,000 even, then maybe. But if they're building, 30 or 40,000 of these things over its lifetime,
It's not going to be that.
it's not going to be that collectible.
That being said, Nathan, I think in its first year they made like 3,000 or so, or something really small like that. Like, that's not a very big run, and I don't think they expanded production a ton past that, but they have continued to build it.
Yes, they have, and that's why I think that it's on this list. It's maybe.
Also, the car crazy guy just bought a Type R, so congrats to you, man. Please
Congrats,
tell us
dude.
what you think.
Every single one I've driven, I've really enjoyed, except for the seats, because for
Yeah.
a big fat guy like me, those
They don't-
seats really hurt. Which,
they
by
make
the
you
way, we have a video coming out that has that car featured in it.
You can tune in to TFLnow, I think tomorrow, right? And watch that video when it comes out. Let's keep moving on. Number 2 is it's a very special car indeed. It's the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon, not the Hellcat, because
They built the crap out of Hellcats.
they built a lot of Hellcats. The Demon, they made, I think, exactly 3,000 of them here for the U.S. Canada got like 300. And it has 840 horsepower. It runs crazy fast quarter miles straight out of the box. It came with a box that had like drag wheels and a different engine tuning unit. Like, it's such a cool package, and they built very few of them.
Right. That's what makes a car collectible. Now, bear in mind, there aren't going to be that many that are going to be that collectible, because I've heard stories of guys blowing them up, wrapping them around trees, or having transmissions like launched to the rear of them. So go for it.
Ding. Alex Leonard gave us 10 euros.
Euros,
Look
bro.
at that.
Thank you very much.
That is worth
Bonjour,
more than U.S.
thank you.
dollars. Holy moly.
I said bonjour.
Bonjour.
Oh, I say hello.
Well,
Merci
French.
beaucoup.
Yeah,
Why did I say
bonjour is
bonjour?
hello.
I'm sorry.
That works.
Forgive
Merci.
me.
Dankeschön. I don't know. The euro could cover a lot of countries.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate
Okay.
That one, though.
I know.
Not that
I didn't
one.
want to go into Brexit or anything else, but we talked about the Civic Type R, so I was British. Okay.
Fair
So
enough.
the bottom line is that with the Dodge Demon, you are talking about a vehicle that has a limited run. It's super appealing because of its superpower,
Yep.
and it's one of those vehicles that by the time they start selling those things as collectibles, there's only going to be a few left because people are crashing them and blowing them up left and right.
Yeah.
Attrition, baby.
Yeah, and actually, Joseph makes a good point. The Demon's already priced out of this world. He's right there. I mean, they were expensive to begin with, and I'm sure buying one used is not going to be a cheap experience for
Dealer
you.
markups were terrible on those cars too, even though they tried to control it. Now, by the way, you might be asking about the Red Eye. The Red Eye is limited, but nowhere near as limited as the Demon.
Yeah.
And yes, the Red Eye is really powerful, but the Demon was a little bit more powerful.
Indeed.
And the Demon was built specifically for driving straight down a track really fast. The
Really,
Red
really
Eye
fast.
can kind of sort of handle turns.
And some people who own the Demon won't even be able to drive it fast in a straight line, so they'll become rarer over time.
Exactly.
There may be a couple trailer queens that just sit there and go to car shows in SEMA. Those would be the ones that are the collectibles, I think.
It's very possible. Okay, should we go to number one?
Let's hit number one.
Number one just came out, and Roman just had a chance to drive one. It's the Toyota Supra. A lot of you guys were commenting this already. Ooh.
Oh,
William Hanley sent us $1.99, but said $10.
that's very
That
clever.
happens a
Thank you.
lot.
Thank you for the
Thank
donation,
you,
by the
William.
way.
We appreciate
very
that.
much appreciate it. The Supra, this one is probably the most controversial on this list to you guys, I'm sure, because it was very much developed in conjunction with BMW. It doesn't have a Toyota engine,
No, it
but
doesn't.
it's the return of a really famous nameplate to the United States. If there's anything that'll keep it from being a future classic, I think it's the fact that it isn't available with a manual transmission right now.
Currently.
And people are upset about that,
Yeah.
certainly. But from many, many accounts, it drives incredibly well. It's super fun on the track, really pleasant on the road, and I actually think the looks are growing on people.
Not on me. I'm sorry, guys. I know a lot of you guys are kind of coming over to the Toyota side of the world with it. It's not to me, but here's the one positive about that car. If they build it in limited numbers, and if they do actually offer different packages with it, which I think they will, maybe they'll have a Super Gazoo Racing TRD
Maybe.
special,
Who knows?
then I think it'll be very collectible.
Yeah, if there's a special edition, that'll definitely help its case.
Sorry, Lex.
Also, what's interesting here is I think a lot of people were concerned about the Supra because they feel it's not going to be as reliable as a Toyota should be because it has a BMW engine. But what's interesting, you can go check out on TFL, I think it's on Car, or Now. There's a video that Roman did with the chief engineer for this vehicle who talked to great length about a couple things, namely
nauseam.
one, how it was designed purposely to meet Toyota's. This engine was developed by Toyota to meet their own longevity standards. That's key. But also what's really cool about it is that Toyota built in a lot of key features to make it more easy to modify down the road because they knew people were going to mod these.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a real positive point. Look, I don't want to disparage the car in terms of its performance and its overall likability. I'm sure a lot of people are thrilled about it. I'm happy that they brought the nameplate back.
Absolutely.
My issue with the vehicle really is the fact that it doesn't have a manual transmission, and the concept version of that vehicle was, well, frankly, better looking.
Oh, man.
But
the concept was beautiful.
But in terms of collectability, and that's what really we're talking about here, not in terms of whether or not we like the car. Collectability, yeah, why not? I think it would be quite a collectible car, provided that they don't build too many of them. And I'm sorry, guys, about my coughing and noises.
It's okay. Yeah, I think, it remains to be seen how many they actually build and sell. I'm curious to see what sort of numbers they actually start producing on these because, well, we know that dealers are marking them up already. Yeah.
Oh, Boney Chuck just said C7 Corvette ZR1, which I did suggest.
We did have that as a thought on this list. We decided to put in the CTSV that.
No, the Camaro instead.
Oh yeah.
I did the
Yeah.
Camaro, so yeah.
That's a good point because Boney Chuck makes he made the point for us. Yeah, it's the last front engine Corvette, and the ZR1 is the most insane
Version of
you
that.
know what crazy of it.
Yeah.
I think that's actually a pretty good guess as well. So maybe we should take a minute and like look at some of the ones you guys have
Yeah,
suggested.
Subaru Baja, probably not so much.
Yeah.
Actually, interesting thing about that vehicle, the collectible ones, if they ever did become actually collectible, so to speak, would be the turbos with the manual transmission. Those were the least amount built. They did build turbos with automatics as well, and then of course they had the naturally aspirated engines.
Yep.
The two-tone, yellow and silver, was the most popular one of those. How do I know all this? Well, for one thing, I almost bought one because I thought at first, yeah, this is so weird, it might be kind of cool, but because it only has 2 seat belts in the back and not 3, I was like, it's not going to work with the wife. But no, there are a lot of cars out there. Once again, remember the numbers on how many they built, and the Subaru Baja was actually built in fairly decent numbers.
Relatively speaking, indeed. Here's some. Oh,
Why do people keep saying the Smart 4 too?
the smart. No, there's no way.
But what about
Oh, no.
the? Yeah, I'm going to say
Oh,
it.
no.
What
Don't
about
say
the
it.
Aston?
Oh no.
Aston
No,
Martin
no,
version
no,
of
no,
that?
not the Signet, not the Signet.
It's
That
the
was the
No,
Scion
no, no, no,
IQ.
no.
That wasn't the Smart.
Oh, that's right. It was the Scion IQ.
I mean, it looks exactly.
I don't
the same.
think there are any that are in the United States. Do you
I've
guys
never,
think that?
I've never seen one
because
outside of,
people
like,
would
an
throw
episode of
Molotov
Top Gear.
cocktails at them.
Gosh, they
I'm
are
pretty.
Ooh.
What a yeah. That wasn't even. You're right. It wasn't even a smart car.
Not even a smart. It was a Scion with
Oh.
Aston Martin badges on it.
But there was the
Yeah,
Brabus
okay.
version of the smart car, right? There was a Brabus, and there was like an AMG one or something like that as well.
Yeah,
There's been some
there
funky ones,
are.
yeah.
Yeah, but they're not. Okay, the regular 4.2, they're not that rare.
No.
They're not that good looking.
Oh, no.
They're not desirable.
No.
They're
Yeah,
not
Can't
good to
think of anyone
drive.
wants, unless you're really weird. I don't know why you would want to collect.
Well,
them.
some people like to be unique and get something nobody else has.
It's like the people that collect BMW like Isettas. Maybe
No,
maybe
don't put down the Isetta, bro.
What I'm saying is
Oh,
maybe you're onto
son.
something. Maybe we're onto something here. Like it's one of those really weird, you know.
Oh, like weird.
like it's
that's
so
what you're equating
weird
it to.
that eventually it becomes sought after. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Ram V was asking if we're going to put these podcasts, these live shows rather, on Apple Podcasts. And we're not currently working on that, but we can explore that
We can
possibility.
look into it. If there's enough interest, guys, for a podcast, that's something we've been talking about doing for a little bit.
Yeah,
But
it is.
it's a big commitment in terms of throwing resources at it. And
We'd actually have to have somebody dedicated to putting that together, putting it on there, and
Right.
everything else, which requires, well, frankly, money and time.
yes,
Neither of which we have much of. So, but if there's enough interest, I mean, these things they do okay after we're done. They turn into videos,
Yeah.
right? And you guys do watch them. So, if the numbers keep going up, then yeah, I think that's something we could definitely explore.
yeah, we could look into it. So if you do want us to do a podcast, drop a comment down below, tell us, or send an email to info@tflcar.com. Another one that was brought up, I forget who said it. It was said a couple times by a few different people, but the Honda S2000 is a little older than what we're talking about on this list, but
Yeah.
it's still pretty modern, and I do think that has a good chance, just
Good.
because like every single one is modified to crap.
Exactly. Good luck finding one that's unmolested.
Right.
And that's really the only way to get a collectible one is getting one that hasn't been destroyed by a drifter or over modified. They're wonderful cars.
Keep
but
it clean. Like
it's
speaking
really hard to
of,
find.
of the Supra again, right? We've just seen in the recent months like 5 or 6 twin turbo straight 6 Supras of the Mark IV generation going for like bajillions of dollars, well over $100,000. And those are the ones that were unmodified, that were clean, that have low mileage. And it's one of those things that I think the S2000 has a great chance of doing the same thing if you get your hands on one that is clean and that's unmodified, and you
And
keep it that way.
I still think those prices are ridiculous, and
Yeah,
someone's
that's
been
insane.
smoking something weird. Somebody mentioned the Mini Cooper. No, there's just too many currently. If you're talking about the new ones, remember, we're talking about modern collectibles. So the modern Mini, unless there's some super special version of it, and there have been like the Oxford and whatnot,
Yeah.
where they built limited numbers of them. I don't think they're going to be very collectible anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't think so.
There's just so many being built. You know what I mean?
There's another good suggestion. Someone said the 991.2 Porsche GT3 RS. I think that's probably a good idea. Actually, better than that is the GT3 Touring, which is the one that has no wing, but it has the manual transmission and the engine and the suspension and all that good stuff.
You and I were just talking about that car the other day.
We were. Really beautiful car. Another good one is the Jeep Trackhawk. I think that has a good chance of making it to collectible status.
Here's why. Because no one's buying them right now.
Absolutely not. Yeah. No one is buying them.
They're exceedingly rare, even right now.
Someone else's, Justin Tom Ford Pink Kush said McLaren Senna, probably.
A lot of those.
That's already
McLaren
really hard
P1
to
and all
buy.
those other ones, of course. But, in terms of the super exotic cars, an awful lot of those will be collectible, of
the
course.
FJ Cruiser.
They built a lot of them. So
Edward Ortega said that. Yes, but relative to how many Forerunners and Tacomas they build, a lot less.
A lot less, sure, but they still had a really good production run.
If you get the Trail Teams edition, the last model of the FJ Cruiser, that one's probably going to be collectible.
Right.
Another good one, the GT350R, the Ford Mustang.
Yeah, the GT350R, indeed. That's a really good choice. Somebody else earlier said the 302 Boss. Yes, it's another very good one.
Yep.
Once again, it's the ones that didn't really hit the high numbers. A regular GT, no. And I even think the current Bullet, probably not so much because they're selling a lot of them. So it's hard to say for sure. Guys, we're going to close this down. Was there any other comments, though, before we get going?
Should we answer what car?
Caprice PPV, which is the police package, right?
We got a couple.
Yeah, it is. I think once those go out of police use, and the old Caprice PPVs in a couple of years end up in auctions, maybe. We'll see. I don't know if it's going to be there are a ton of Crown Vics out there. Just do the first. Just do the first.
Yeah.
One,
So let's answer one question because we do have a couple pre-prepared questions here. The first one comes from Robert, who asks, "What makes the Pontiac G8 so valuable?"
The G8. Another vehicle. This is related to the Chevy that we were talking about earlier, the SS, and the Caprice. So it's built on. Is it a Holden platform?
Yeah.
And that vehicle was in some ways built to compete with vehicles like BMW because we're talking about a front engine, rear drive, good sized sedan,
big V8
that could compete roughly with the BMW 5 Series.
Sure.
And then if you got the V8 and if you got the GXP version, then all of a sudden you had a super hot car that had a half decent interior, I thought looked pretty good, and had incredible performance and was affordable. Unfortunately, people are already starting to make them way too expensive. Actually, that may have it was a little too old to be on this list. They stopped building them a little too far back. But that's definitely a possible collectible.
Why don't you tell us the story of the one you were going to buy?
Oh, my wife was really pissed off about this, and so was I, because I went to a dealership in Colorado Springs because I knew that Pontiac was on the way out, and they had a GXP there, and it was supposed to be silver, supposed to have a manual transmission.
Like that?
Actually, yeah, a lot like that. And so I went down there. At the time, we were looking for a new car, and we only had one kid, so it's like, hey, maybe we get a sedan. So I go down there. They didn't have the silver one. They had a black one. I didn't want a black one. The guy brings me over to the car, and instead of it being, I think it was around 40 and change for the price, it was over 50. They upgraded that price big time. And a nice little bait and switch. I took one look at it. I didn't even look at the salesman. I just turned right around and walked away, and my wife was giving me one of those because we drove all the way down Colorado Springs and walked away empty-handed. And you know what we ended up with after that? A Mazda 5. That's the one with the sliding doors.
Womp womp.
It was a really good family car.
Nathan, I've noticed a trend here with you and
Shut up,
bringing
kid.
your wife to purchase vehicles.
Don't talk about your mom that way.
She's not my mom.
Now he's being rebellious. All you guys say that we're supposed to be.
All you have to do is bring earmuffs and a blindfold next time.
You're never getting married.
Because then she can't hear that it's a V8. And she can't see that it might have a V8 or whatever it is, right? She can't see it's that. You just say, listen, honey, sit inside it. It's going to be comfortable. It'll be great.
It didn't work with the Cadillac. It wouldn't have worked with that car.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you need to do is just ask forgiveness, not permission.
It doesn't work that way. Come on, guys. Those of you who are married on either side of the thing, come on. You tell the kid what's up because he doesn't get it.
Bunny Chuck says, wife won that one, lol.
Yeah, without a doubt. What's up?
So before we close out, let's talk about going back to the 10 modern classics we discussed. Which one would you actually buy? We know which one you would buy, Nathan, but what about Mike?
Come on, Mike.
You'd buy the CTSV wagon.
Without a doubt.
Ooh. Man, I really lust after that Z28 Camaro. That car is like, it set some good lap times on a track, and it's really cool looking, big V8.
Hard to see out of.
It's either that or the M2 for me. One of those two.
You'd get the M2.
No,
You would.
But see, I think the
lie
Camaro
to your dad.
would be cheaper to maintain. It would be more cylinders and more V8e. Probably just as fast on a track, actually, I would venture. I don't know off the top of my head, but I think pretty sure they're close in terms of on-track performance.
Off camera, you guys don't see how he oogles after everything German.
But the M2 is more comfortable, and I don't know. The straight six is a great engine.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's
amazing.
between those two.
You
for
get
me.
you get the BMW. We all know that. Thank you for playing them, nonetheless.
He's going to buy his BMW M2, and then he's going to just completely delve into German culture, eat sausage, drink warm beer.
He looks the part for crying
Warm
out
beer.
loud.
Whoa, no warm beer. We're not
Okay.
drinking any warm beer here.
He is from Seattle,
Jesus,
so.
Pete.
Okay,
Let's
guys.
not
I
Take it
disagree
away.
with both of you.
What?
Yeah,
Zachary.
totally. I'd
What
buy
are-
the Alpha.
Oh my God.
Have you
Oh
sat in one yet?
my God, Zach.
Have you actually climbed
Zach,
over
I
that
don't
sill?
care.
Zach
I
has
don't
he
care.
has a boot on his leg
Oh
and
my
some
God,
crutches
dude, you
right
can't
now.
get into the
you
car
would
comfortably.
you would have to dive in head first and hope.
Zach
that it
is
worked
about
out.
6 feet tall. A lot of you haven't
Gosh.
seen him, so
And I
he-
recently broke my ankle. That's
he-
why
Yes,
I'm
like
not-
in
yes,
19
yes.
I'm
pieces.
talking about when I'm able-bodied.
Even then,
himself.
even then, it's impossible. to
No.
get it out.
Who would not want a small
Me.
mid-engine
I would not want
Alfa
that.
Romeo?
I will-
It is
No,
a
I
really
would say
awesome car. I
I would
agree with
not
you.
want that.
But you're I'm sorry, you're wrong at the same time. Okay, guys, I think we all have our own consensus. Remember, this turns into a video later on. We will be reading some of the comments. We will respond to a few of them as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you for putting up with all of our stuff. We
Our
appreciate it.
shenanigans, guys. Should I make this announcement today?
What do you think, Zach?
Should I make?
No, we'll leave it till
We'll leave it
tomorrow.
to
We're gonna leave it till tomorrow.
A special announcement coming tomorrow, so tune into that live show.
He's not my son.
That's it. You ruined the surprise, Nathan.
Results of the paternity test came back.
Nathan, you
rabbit
are
done
not
died.
the father. All right, guys. We'll see you next time.
Play us out.
I'll play us out.
Play us out,
I'm
guys.
working on it. Jeez.
Trucks another time. Another time.
Oh yeah, truck's coming up soon.
See you guys.